I'm running away with you. That's all I ever do, and that's all we ever mean. But I forgive you everything. Meet me at the railroad bar about 7 o'clock. We'll talk while the sun goes down. Watch the lovers are leaving town. This is for lovers running away. This is for lovers running away. Just for today, I'm running away with you from yesterday's news. Let's leave it all behind. Help me back to my mind. I paid the penalty. Hear the jailer rattling the key, but the key was mine. I keep a spare one every time. This is for lovers running away.
Don't worry, I'm not going to rumble on. George's Day, 1986, I became the proudest man on earth. I can tell you now that I'm as proud today as I was that day 28 years ago. I'd like to thank you all for being here on this wonderful occasion. I'm sure that you'll all agree that the bridesmaids are looking stunning, as well as the two very special mothers. And this again, the world's finest flower girl. Thank you also from Alf for the meticulous detail you put into the stag weekend in Hamburg. I've been to many stag do's in my adult life, and this is by far the best I've been on. Don't worry, lads, it's all safe. Now, it's no secret that Curtese suffers some dreadful health problems over the last few years. It's only when you have a child with a serious illness that you'll understand the depth of despair that Sarah and I found ourselves in, only which I had my daughter's mental strength and bravery and patience while it's all happening around her. She's remained calm throughout, and quite how she does it, God only knows. My daughter is a true inspiration to me and my true hero. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank every one of you that has ever been to hospital for a visit, sent a card or a gift, or just been a shoulder or a listening ear. You know who you all are, and I can't thank you enough. A special shout out goes to Laura Wade, who's not been far from Curtese's side since a very early age. Thank you, Laura. When you have a child with health problems, it's never far from the back of your mind. And to have someone who we know will look after her and care for her in any hour of need is truly a weight off our minds. And therefore, my most gratitude I can give goes out to Curtese's new husband, Mr. Peter Walters, who has never ever let us down with his caring nature and sensible attitude. Other men may have run a mile, but not this lad. Seriously, I've been for both Sarah and myself, and I cannot thank you enough. I can't think of a finer gentleman to give our little girl away to. It's like Daniel Walters rather than Luke Berlin. family. I'd like to propose a toast to the happy couple, Peter and Tees.
Cheers, Paul, just soften the mood, isn't it? Don't really know how to follow that. I said to Steve earlier in the week that I wasn't really 100% sure how this speech was going to pan out. Mainly because I spent so much time worrying about everything else that was going on. I actually forgot to do the one bit that I was supposed to do. Which was horrendous. Steve did give me a bit of advice. I can't be miserable like I always am. Can't do any jokes. I cannot swear at all. It's forward. On behalf of me and the new Mrs. Walters, a little bit softer, if anything. When I first met Paul, he was working on the door at Charlotte in Leicester, and he scared the shit out of me. I think it was probably the general idea. As we've all seen, he's a bit of a softie. But I just want to thank Paul and Sarah as well for making me feel so welcome as part of the family. Both of you, and for your help to us today, and just for the way that they've brought up Tees to make her the person that she is today. On top of that, I'd also like to thank Paul for not smashing my face at any point over the last few years. I'd also like to thank everyone in Tees' family who are here in front of me now, despite the fact that I'm not a City fan. It's made me feel very welcome whenever I'm around, whatever's going on, and it's just been nice to get to know them after the last few years. On the subject of the family, I'd like to thank my mum and dad. Just for getting me where I am today. Admittedly, most of it has been in the form of low interest loans. Whatever's gone on, they're both stood by me. I wouldn't want to do certain things with not even. Both my mum and also Sarah have been there a lot through both me and Tees, through the ups and downs that we've had, which Paul mentioned. They've both done so much for us over the last few years, and obviously it's all appreciated. As a thank you, gifts for you both.
You're in the car.
He's off. What is it?
Joe's got
No. That one. Yes. We shouldn't be like the fun bit now then. Former Miss Curtese started in. I won't allow the guff down here. I'll be honest with you, I was sort of guessing. Just because I didn't really know what she was going to look like when she came down the aisle. And when I turned around, Absolutely still. Just about 20, mate. Aside from that, when I first did meet Teese, I think me and Wiggy went to watch Mo in a play when he was at university. Mo decided to go back to university a few years ago at the age of 42. Me and Wiggy went to watch him in a play, and I spent about 20 minutes on the way telling Wiggy not to sit on the front row because I knew what the play was like. And we sat on the front row, and we had an hour and a half of some girl from Leicester shouting right in our face. And that girl was obviously Teese. Quite now, doesn't quite shout. She's still the same girl. When we finally did actually get together, me and Teese, after the night out in Leicester, what do we recall? That she made me laugh so much while we were hanging out in her kitchen. I laughed and popped her and spat a mouthful of toast in the face. It was at that point that I knew that she was the girl for me. There's a joke that if you want it, but it's not very good. Because I knew that wherever we were, whatever was happening, you were going to make me laugh and make me smile. Whether we were just sat at home talking with them, pretending that we were on Gogglebox. As Paul said, over the last few years, we've been through a lot. Not just me and Teese, but obviously those around us. Most people will now know about it all, so I won't go into it. But throughout all that time, Teese, Paul said, you're the bravest person I've known. Nothing ever gets you down. You're always smiling. You're always putting people before you. On top of all that, you have to put up with me being a miserable bastard. That's probably the hardest bit that you do. The way you do it's nice. Staying the person that you are. Beautiful both inside and out. Downs. Today has made every single moment worth it. I feel like the luckiest man in the world. I wouldn't change anything. All I've ever had to do is love you. And it's the key to going. Just like to point a toast to the new Mrs. Rogers.
Thank you, Peter. I think the first thing you've learned about Peter, he is miserable, but he is a very funny guy. So I knew I was going to struggle to follow him, but I shall do my best. So much like the last time me and Peter wore suits, I shall tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It was a great honour when Pete asked me to be his best man. This quickly turned to fear when I realised I'd be delivering this speech. I'm not a big fan of public speaking, but I'm told it's a lot like going to a nudie speech. It's only hard for the first couple of minutes. During my speech, I'm going to try and give you an insight into the man who is Peter Lawrence Walters, the husband of Curtese, Sarah Walters. There's some envelopes that are about to be handed out, and within those you will find some booklets that are going to help me go through my speech. You may open it now if yeah. So before you flick to the end, I will do a bit of speaking. So some of you may be wondering who this Peter fellow is that keeps getting talked about today, because he's better known by quite a few nicknames. I thought I'd share them with you. The first one is Sid, or Sydney, or son of Sid, after his dad. The other one is Walt, Walto, Wizar, basically anything that's nearly Walters. Judge Hunt, his alter ego. I'll hear a little bit more about him later. Mush, Mushy, the Shroom, Mushcat, Shroom Dog. Now, unfortunately, I can't tell you why, but I do believe it was discussed at length on the ending. Is that right? And the final one is Huey, after Hugh Grant, who was Pate's teenage hero. But finally, everybody's favourite, Pate. Also, Pate, Pat, Patsilogulu, Pata, Patwanga, Pappington Bear. Now this nickname arrived when Pete's cricketing exploits made it into a Leeds end-of-season handbook. Keen to show off his achievements, Pete opened the book to the page in question, and there it was in big bold letters. P-A-T-E. And from that day on, Pate was born. Pate was actually born on the 18th of June 1977, and his arrival into the world, he set the tone for the rest of his life. He was late. He was skint. He wasn't listening. He was miserable, and he had to be carried home. It was at Rylands Middle School where me and Pete first met, although we weren't really mates. Our paths did cross when the best looking children were required for a photograph that was to be published in the local paper. Unfortunately, they weren't available, so me and Pete got the call up, and as you'll see from the photo on page 4, miserable Pete Walters was more than happy to oblige. For anyone who's wondering, I'm the one at the front, not the one at the back. By the time we met again at Boys Brigade in our teenage years, Pate had ditched his Lego man hair and he'd moved on to the Hugh Grant look. In fact, he kept those floppy curtains for so long, they eventually came back into fashion. And out again. In our teens, we became really good mates, having more laughs than I care to remember, spending hours talking complete rubbish, and even longer waiting for Pete to get ready. It was apparently my fault for continually turning up on time, and quite often I was greeted by Janice in her purple dressing gown. It wasn't all bad. But to be honest, I couldn't ask for a better mate to grow up with, and maybe one day we'll actually grow up. Now, if I was going to tell you about our teenage years, I could tell you about the time when Pete bought a new blue shirt from Primark, wore it on a night out in a sweaty nightclub, and ended the night with skin the colour of a Smurf. I could tell you about the time when Pete bought a new pair of trainers whilst hungover. They were that bad, he made me take them back to the shop for a refund. I could tell you about the time I picked Pete up. He was late. And when he got in the car, he unleashed a tirade of expletives, to which my mum replied from the back seat, "Morning, Pete." I'll be honest, during those teenage years, we probably spent far too much time alone in my bedroom. So much so that my parents thought it was a good idea to install a second bed, and they even considered charging me rent. One thing Pete has always been very good with is numbers, and he's simply brilliant at working out how much a round of drinks costs. He's even better at getting somebody else to pay for it. Normally Sid. By the time he'd reached our 18th birthday, Pete had decided it was time for change. So he decided to do the hokey cokey. He managed to turn himself around. And that's what it's all about. going. Right. Anybody who knows Pete or knows a massive football fan considers himself a bit of a player. When Pete was playing youth football, he made a big move from Vents to Brooklyn St Michael's. Pete will tell you they scouted him for months before securing his signature. But Pete could never work out why they only picked him for away games. It turns out it was Sid they wanted, and more specifically his minibus. Now then, Peter has played over 400 games racing squirrels. If you ask anybody what he's most famous for in those appearances, they're going to tell you this story. The squirrels were playing over in Wellingborough. Pate was doing what he does best. He was running the line. The ball was cleared and it went over his head. King Pete stepped back, tried to catch the ball. Unfortunately, he'd misjudged the large ditch behind him. The ball disappeared. Peter disappeared. But ever the professional, a flag appeared from the ditch to indicate a squirrel's flag. Hello? The heckler's in. Pete's also a keen cricketer, and it was en route to a cricket one Sunday that Pete got himself into a spot of bother. Being in a away game, he was following the lead car, but he felt the need to commentate and share with us his vast knowledge of vehicle pursuit. Apparently, the key is to get close to the target vehicle, but not too close. Maintain a reasonable gap. 5 minutes later, we were parked up in a lay-by. He'd driven into the back of the target vehicle. Now then. To help me with my speech, I thought I'd ask 3 of Pete's close mates to share some thoughts on the crew. And this is what they said. The first man I asked was Philip Adams, a.k.a. Wiggy. And this is what Philip said. Although Peter has been involved in a number of human incidents, he is usually the instigator. He seems to be at his best in football talk and turns into the previously mentioned Judge Hunt, who can be found on page 8. Judge Hunt takes great delight in seeing fellow tourists make a speedy dash to the toilets or a nearby bit of shrubbery after he has made them drink their 4th glass of Asda Smart Price whiskey. Why? Because Judge Hunt has told them to. Because he has that power. And all because that person forgot to bring a pair of white socks because he finds it very interesting. Despite having the capability, in fact I'll try again, despite having the moaning capability of a 70-year-old, he's a right old man. He's stupid, childish, brilliant. Thank you, Wiggy. Next up, we have Nick Harding, aka Limo, and this is what he had to say. A man with a variety of nicknames, but will also always be known to me as Miserable Peter. Now, as a young boy growing up, applying my trade in Crispin's second team, I used to look up to Peter, and indeed Chris Hartgrove, as 2 icons of the local scene. Mature, witty, shrewd, nous, both on the cricket field and off it with the ladies. However, as I soon found out on my first night drinking with Pate, he is me. The night was spent in Chicago Rock Cafe, Northampton, with Peter Walters trying for over an hour to hit my bottle of Budweiser beer to make it froth over. And regularly succeeding, a skill he still has to this day. In his footballing life, he has worn the same pair of underpants on a Sunday morning for 9 years. With the same stain on the undercarriage of silk. More recently, at a Libertines concert at Hyde Park, when some of the coolest kids were present. Only Peter Walters could wear his mum's cagoule. Purchased back in the early 1990s, coupled off with his baggy jeans, tucked into his socks, which still carried it off with a form. I wish him well in married life. Fitz and Henson McAllister will be relieved he's off on honeymoon, as it will give their email system a well-deserved couple of weeks. Thank you, Limo. And finally, the third of the Musketeers, Stuart McDermott, aka Maxie. Pete is a moody old sod, likes things his own way and his way only. He is a lover of football, cricket, drinking and talking rubbish. But he always have a laugh, which is the most important thing. He's an all-round good guy, but he's terrible at DIY. So much so that recently I had to pop round the flat and help him put a picture up. In summary, I knocked in a nail and hung the picture on. So, having reached the age of 30, it was all about to change for Curtese. In January 2008, he started courting Curtese, and the rest, as we've learned today, is history. Over the years, they've grown as a couple, and although Pete is a miserable sod, you will see on page 10, he comes to life when Curtese is around. And we quickly move on to page 11, and in July 2012, Pete finally proposed, and the stag do planning could finally commence. One of my tasks as best man was to arrange the said stag do. It basically involved getting 20 lads and Paul onto a plane destined for Hamburg, and then 3 days later get them all back on a plane to England. Luckily, I had panicking Pete Walters emailing me every day for 9 months to make sure I hadn't forgotten him. But at this point, I would like to apologise to Pete. Having now seen the photo on page 10 of the hen do, no, that's a lie, page 12. It turns out it would have been perfectly acceptable to take a half-naked waitress back to the room for a couple of hours after all. Another of Peter's skills is the ability to need a poo at the most inappropriate Whilst on the tour of the Hamburg football stadium, we arranged to have a stag group photo. It wasn't until we got home and looked at the photo, I realised the stag wasn't on it. He had nipped off for a little sit down. Now, I was a little bit worried that the stag do might have been a bit of a washout. But this worry was soon blown away when I heard Paul declare to Keir, "I've been pissed since Friday lunchtime, we smashed it, son." Brings us nicely onto the wedding day. And I think you will agree, the bride looks 1 in a million. As opposed to the groom, who looks like he won a competition. Curtese, you look fantastic. Also a special mention to the lovely bridesmaids, Laura and Alison. They completed their main job admirably. Which was getting Curtese on time. No mean feat. I understand she put up quite a struggle. As for the groom, the one and only occasion he's been on time in his life, but true to form, he did disappear on more than one occasion for a little sit down. Now then, Peter, I have got some cards for you and your wife. The first one reads, to Peter and Curtese, best wishes from the players and staff at Northampton Town Football Club. The second one reads, Peter, it reads, have a great day, best wishes, Michael Dawson.
Dawson.
Captain. Peter's. The third one reads, and this is a bit bizarre, it says, to Peter and Curtese, top tip, don't have a curry on your wedding night. Finish up smelling like Atherton. Have fun, David Bumble Lloyd. Yes, and the final one is a double header. There's 2 messages. And if I can read it right, it says, dear Pete, congratulations on getting married to ? As your daft best man, Chris, forgot to include your better half's name. Have a great day, and I sincerely hope Chris gets his feelings better than best wishes from the person who will name names at the moment. The second part of the card reads, to Paul, congratulations on giving Curtese away on her wedding day. Best wishes, Nigel Pearson. Finally, I think this is the last page. Right, finally, some wise words to take you into the rest of your days as husband and wife. A man who gives in when he is wrong is a wise man. A man who gives in when he is right is married. Somebody once said marriage is a 50-50 partnership. But anybody who believes that knows nothing about women or fractions. Now then, Curtese. Marriage to Peter is much like a pack of cards. Today, it's all about hearts and diamonds. In the end, you'll be looking for a club and a spade. But before I do my final toast, the final word goes to Curtese, who, when I asked to describe her husband to be, he said, he's my actual angel. I couldn't live without him. So, it now gives me immense pleasure, not to mention relief, to invite you all to stand, raise your glasses, and wish all the happiness in the world to the new Mr. and Mrs. Walters, to Peter and Curtese. Peter and Curtese. Chris.
I'm running away with you. That's all I ever do. And that's all we ever mean. I forgive you everything. Meet me at the railroad bar about 7 o'clock. We'll talk while the sun goes down. Watch the lovers are leaving town. This is for